Captain Elias Varn had always been a man of extremes. From the moment he had joined the Earth Space Exploration Corps, he sought challenges that others avoided. When offered the chance to participate in the longest isolation experiment ever attempted, he did not hesitate. A year of complete solitude on an uncharted moon seemed impossible to most. But to Elias, it was the perfect test not just of his body, but of his mind. The moon, officially designated Zion 7, was a barren, rocky world orbiting a distant gas giant. It had no atmosphere suitable for humans and no signs of life, at least none that anyone had seen. A single isolation pod, designed to support one human for 12 months, had been lowered into a secure cavern, protected from cosmic radiation and micrometeorites. Inside the pod, Elias would sleep, eat prepackaged meals, exercise, and monitor his own health. Any contact with the outside world would be minimal and carefully controlled. He stepped into the pod with a mixture of excitement and nerves. The door sealed behind him with a hiss, cutting off the last rays of sunlight and the faint hum of machinery above. The walls glowed faintly with soft panels of light, enough to mimic the cycle of day and night. Elias took a deep breath and spoke aloud, though he knew no one would hear him for months. "Let's see what humans can endure," he said, his voice bouncing softly off the chamber walls. The first weeks were manageable. The isolation was strange, but not unbearable. Elias set routines to keep his mind active. He exercised daily, following a strict regimen that combined strength, flexibility, and endurance. He read old Earth literature he had brought with him and kept a detailed journal of every thought, every dream, and every fleeting emotion. But after a month, the solitude began to gnaw at him. Humans were social creatures, and even the strongest mind could feel the weight of total loneliness. The walls of the pod seemed to close in. Every small noise, a groan of the metal, a sudden flicker of the lights made him start. Even the steady pulse of his own heartbeat felt alien. He began speaking aloud more often, holding imaginary conversations, trying to keep the human part of himself alive. It was during these long nights that Elias first noticed the dreams. They were not like ordinary dreams. They were vivid, intense, and felt almost real. In them, he walked through landscapes unlike anything on Earth. Mountains of crystal shimmered in alien light. Rivers of glowing liquid twisted through forests of shapes that seemed alive, though they had no leaves or branches. Strange creatures watched him from a distance, not attacking, only observing. He woke each morning with the images still burning in his mind, and a curious feeling that someone or something was watching him even when he was awake. Elias tried to dismiss the thought. He was alone. That was the point. But he could not shake the feeling that Zion 7 was not as empty as everyone assumed. Occasionally, he would notice small signs, a shadow where there should have been none, a subtle shift in the glow of the cavern walls, a whispering hum in the silence. Each time, he reminded himself that his mind was playing tricks. That isolation could warp perception. Months passed. Elias fell into a rhythm. He woke, exercised, studied, documented his thoughts, and tried to sleep. The isolation had changed him. He had learned patience, control, and the power of mental discipline. Yet he also discovered a deep longing for connection. Even the simplest human contact, a voice, a touch, a shared laugh, was impossible to replicate. The loneliness sometimes felt unbearable, yet he endured it, driven by curiosity and the desire to prove himself. One night, after nearly 8 months in isolation, the dreams changed. This time, the landscapes were not only strange, they were familiar. He walked through a great hall filled with beings taller than humans, their forms elegant and shimmering with a faint inner light. In the center floated a figure more magnificent than anything he had ever imagined, the alien queen. She was not frightening, not monstrous, but regal, intelligent, and calm. She raised a hand, and Elias felt a warmth spread through his body, as if the very air around him carried meaning. He woke with a start, sweat on his brow, unsure if the dream was real or simply a product of his imagination. But the sensation lingered. Over the next days, the dreams became more frequent, more vivid. The queen's presence felt almost tangible, as if she were reaching across the vast distance to study him, to test him even in his sleep, despite the fear such thoughts might inspire in others. Elias felt neither terror nor panic. Instead, he felt a strange pull toward understanding. He began to meditate more, to explore not only the limits of his body but of his mind. He questioned the nature of reality, the meaning of isolation, and the possibilities of life beyond Earth. In the solitude of Zion 7, he discovered the vastness of thought, imagination, and perception. And then, one quiet evening, something impossible happened. As Elias sat in meditation, he sensed a presence in the room, not a shadow, not a sound, but a movement of awareness. The air seemed to shift around him, and the pod's lights pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. A voice, calm and clear, spoke inside his mind, though no lips moved. "You endure," it said. Elias froze. His mind raced. Was it a hallucination? A side effect of isolation? Yet the voice was not threatening. It carried authority, curiosity, and a strange respect. "I endure," he replied aloud, testing the connection. Yes, the voice responded, filling his consciousness with a sensation of presence larger than anything he had known. "You are observed. You are chosen to understand what others cannot." The words sent a shiver down his spine. Chosen? Observed? By whom? He wanted to speak, to question, but the presence did not allow ordinary conversation. Instead, it left impressions, flashes of understanding, and visions he could not yet grasp. It was as if the alien consciousness were both distant and intimately close. Studying him without intrusion, Elias spent hours in meditation after that, trying to comprehend the experience. He realized that Zion 7 was not simply a testing ground for human endurance, it was a threshold. Somewhere beyond his isolated chamber, something intelligent, ancient, and beyond human comprehension was watching, and it had chosen him for reasons he could not yet understand. The rest of the month passed in a strange combination of wonder and vigilance. Elias trained, documented, and reflected. He no longer feared the isolation because he sensed a purpose behind it. The moon was no longer merely a barren rock. It was a stage, and he was part of a larger experiment, one that might connect humanity to something far greater. By the time the year was nearly complete, Elias had changed. The loneliness, the discipline, the dreams, and the mysterious presence had forged him into someone different from the man who had entered the pod. He had learned patience, endurance, and the strength of the human mind. Yet he also discovered humility and awareness that humans were small in the universe, but capable of reaching beyond themselves in ways even aliens might find remarkable. And so, as he prepared for what he thought would be a return to Earth, Elias felt a mix of anticipation and trepidation. The isolation had taught him that humans could endure almost anything. But now, something new awaited him, something that promised to test not just his endurance, but the very essence of what it meant to be human. He did not yet know what lay beyond the walls of his pod. He did not yet understand the presence that had chosen him. But he was ready. For the first time in his life, Elias Varn understood that being human was not merely about survival. It was about rising to meet the impossible, about facing the unknown with courage, and about proving, even in solitude, that humans were extraordinary. And in the silent cavern of Zion 7, a subtle pulse of awareness watched him still, waiting for the moment to reveal the next chapter. The silence of Zion 7 had become familiar to Elias, almost comforting. For nearly a year, he had lived in the isolation pod, meditated on the limits of the human mind, and trained himself to endure loneliness. But nothing in that year had prepared him for the moment he awoke. At first, he thought he was dreaming. The pod's walls were gone. In their place stretched a vast chamber, filled with soft, glowing light that seemed to pulse with life. The air was breathable, warm, and strangely fragrant, though he could not recognize the scent. He sat up and looked around, his heart racing. The smooth floor shimmered faintly beneath his feet, reflecting shapes that seemed alive, moving with subtle grace. Then he saw them. Figures taller than any human, slender and elegant, walked through the chamber. Their skin shimmered with a faint inner light, like liquid crystal flowing beneath a translucent surface. They moved without sound, yet their presence carried weight and authority. Elias instinctively straightened, unsure whether to speak or remain still. And then he saw her, the alien queen. She floated above the ground, her form more magnificent than anything he could describe. Her body was tall and graceful, yet every movement radiated power. Her eyes, though unlike human eyes, seemed to look directly into his mind. The pulse of the chamber seemed to respond to her presence. As if the very room acknowledged her command, Elias felt a strange mixture of awe and fear. Every instinct in his body screamed to run or hide, yet he could not move. He was rooted to the spot, unable to look away. The queen extended a slender hand, not in threat, but as an invitation. He realized that she could communicate without words, that her thoughts reached directly into his consciousness. "You have endured," the queen said, her voice both gentle and commanding, filling his mind rather than his ears. "You have proven your strength and patience. Few in the universe could survive what you have endured alone. You are remarkable." Elias struggled to respond, his mind racing to process what was happening. I don't understand," he whispered aloud. "Why am I here? Who are you?" The queen's presence seemed to expand around him, calm yet overwhelming. "I am the ruler of this world, and guardian of knowledge older than your stars. You were chosen because you possess what many others lack: strength, curiosity, and courage, qualities rare even among humans." He took a step forward, his voice steadier now. Chosen for what?" "To understand," she said, her thoughts echoing in his mind like a chorus of wind through crystal towers. "To see what humanity can offer the universe. You have endured isolation, a test of body and mind. But now, the true challenge begins." Elias felt a wave of questions. What challenge? Why him? And why here, with these beings? But before he could speak again, the chamber shifted. Shapes and lights danced around him, forming pathways and patterns that seemed impossible to comprehend. The floor pulsed beneath his feet, the walls shimmered, and the figures moved in a way that suggested both grace and power far beyond human understanding. "You will not be harmed," the queen reassured him, "but you must learn to see beyond your senses, to understand the universe as we understand it." Elias swallowed hard. I am ready to try." "Good," she said. "First, you must perceive, not with your eyes, but with your mind. Observe the energy that flows through all things. Life is not only matter, it is connection, thought, and intent." Elias closed his eyes, feeling the pulse of the chamber around him. At first, there was only his heartbeat, the faint hum of the lights, the smoothness of the floor beneath his feet. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, he sensed something else. Threads of light flowing through the air, connecting the figures, the walls, even himself. It was like a network of life, energy, and awareness that spanned the chamber. "It is beautiful," he whispered. "I can feel it." "Yes," the queen replied. "And this is only the beginning. We observe countless civilizations. Some thrive, some fall. Few endure. You are the first human to survive complete isolation in a test designed to awaken potential. Few would have the courage or discipline. You have succeeded where many others would fail." Elias tried to absorb the weight of her words. Humans had always looked up to the stars, dreaming of contact, dreaming of greatness. And yet, here he was standing in the presence of a species far beyond human imagination, being told that he had something unique, something valuable. "Why me?" he asked finally. "Why not someone else?" The queen's eyes seemed to pierce his thoughts. "Because you endure, not only with your body, but with your mind and heart. Many possess intelligence. Many possess strength. Few possess the combination of courage, creativity, and compassion that humans have, and that you have demonstrated. You are extraordinary." Elias felt a strange pride, but also humility. He realized that his isolation, the pain, the fear, the loneliness, all of it had led to this moment. And yet, he could not shake a faint feeling of anxiety. What did it mean to be extraordinary? What would be asked of him next? The queen raised her hand again. Suddenly, the chamber transformed. The walls seemed to dissolve into open space, revealing stars and planets beyond imagination. Entire galaxies stretched before him, each a swirl of light and energy. And within that vastness, he saw civilizations, some glowing and vibrant, others dim and quiet. This, the Queen said, is the universe as it truly exists. We watch, guide, and sometimes intervene. But the challenges of life are many. Only those with the courage to face the unknown can thrive. And now, you will face what few humans have ever faced. Elias felt the chamber shift beneath him. Shapes moved, lights shimmered, and suddenly he was no longer in the pod, no longer in the cavern. He stood on a platform that floated above a glowing landscape of impossible shapes and colors. He could see the figures of the alien beings moving below him, their forms interacting in ways that suggested a complex society, orders of thought and purpose beyond human comprehension. You are not alone, the Queen said, but you must learn to act alone, to think beyond fear and instinct. You will be tested. Your strength, courage, and intelligence will be measured not by combat or force, but by understanding, creativity, and moral choice. You are human. That is your greatest advantage. Elias took a deep breath. He had trained himself for endurance, but now he realized that endurance alone would not be enough. The challenge ahead required thought, perception, and perhaps most importantly, heart. He was terrified, and yet, for the first time in his life, he felt truly alive. You will begin. The Queen said, with observation, learn our ways, learn our connections. Then, when the time comes, act. Show what it means to be human in the presence of civilizations older and wiser than your own. Elias nodded, though she could feel his thoughts even without the gesture. He was ready to begin, not knowing what the test would demand, but certain that he would face them with everything he had. Humans had always survived the impossible. Perhaps now, humanity would show the universe what it truly meant to endure. As the glowing chamber shifted again, the alien figures moved to guide him through a world that defied description. Platforms, towers, and flowing rivers of light stretched endlessly. Shapes twisted and turned, suggesting movement and life in ways his mind struggled to comprehend. And above all, the Queen watched not as a ruler, but as a guide, testing the limits of his courage, intelligence, and humanity. For the first time, Elias understood something profound. Humans had a power that even the most advanced alien species might not fully grasp: the power of imagination, creativity, and moral choice. And if he could demonstrate it, perhaps humans could claim a place among the stars. The fear in his chest remained, but now it was accompanied by wonder, curiosity, and a flicker of excitement. He stepped forward, leaving behind the comfort of the familiar, into a world that would test everything he thought he knew about life, intelligence, and himself. And somewhere, in the silent glow of the chamber, the alien Queen's presence pulsed with approval. Elias Varn moved carefully across the glowing platforms, every step filling him with awe and caution. The world around him was like nothing he had ever seen. Rivers of liquid light flowed beside crystalline towers, and the alien figures moved with a grace that seemed almost unreal. But he had no time to simply marvel. The alien Queen had made it clear he would be tested. Observation is not enough. Her voice filled his mind, calm and commanding. You must act, think, and choose. You must show what humans are capable of. Elias felt a mixture of excitement and fear. He had survived a year in complete isolation, endured mental strain that would have broken most people, and now he faced something even more daunting. The test was not physical, not about strength or combat. It was about ingenuity, understanding, and morality, qualities that humans often struggle to balance. The first task appeared almost immediately. A large alien device floated before him, hovering above the glowing platform. It was a complex structure of shifting shapes, spinning panels, and glowing circuits, entirely unlike any machine he had ever encountered. He instinctively reached out, trying to touch it, and felt a small shock run through his hand, not harmful, but enough to make him flinch. Analyze it, the Queen instructed. Understand it, adapt. Elias stepped back and examined the device. It was clearly functional, but its purpose was not obvious. Patterns of light pulsed in ways that suggested information was being transmitted. But how to read it? He touched one of the spinning panels lightly. and the machine responded, shifting and pulsing. Faster. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. It was impossible to measure time in this world. Elias experimented carefully, pressing panels, tracing light flows, observing the way the device moved. He noticed patterns that resembled logic circuits, familiar to him from his training with human technology. Slowly, he began to understand the structure, predicting how the panels would move and how the energy would flow. Finally, with a mixture of intuition and trial, he manipulated the device so that it aligned perfectly. A burst of soft light signaled success, and Elias felt a rush of triumph. He had solved the problem not with brute force, but with observation, creativity, and patience. "You understand," the Queen said, her voice filling his mind. "But understanding alone is not enough. You must also act wisely, with judgment and empathy. This is your true test." Before him, a holographic projection appeared, showing a world similar to Earth, inhabited by an alien species struggling to survive. Their cities were crumbling, their resources failing, and they faced threats from both the environment and from hostile neighbors. Elias realized that the simulation was a test of decision-making. The aliens could be saved, but only if he made the right choices. Elias studied the projection carefully. He could direct resources, reorganize their defenses, and guide their leaders. But each choice had consequences. Divert too many resources to one city, and another would suffer. Take a risk to confront a hostile neighbor, and innocent lives might be lost. He felt a pang of responsibility, unlike any simulation he had ever experienced on Earth. This was not a game. The weight of potential outcomes felt real. He began to act using logic, observation, and a human sense of fairness. He allocated resources to protect the most vulnerable, guided the leaders to negotiate with their neighbors, and even used strategies that were unconventional strategies he had learned from his own experiences on Earth, from history, from observation of human ingenuity. Slowly, the alien civilization stabilized, and Elias felt a cautious sense of success. The Queen's presence pulsed through his mind. "You act as a human," she said. "You combine intellect, creativity, and empathy. Many species are intelligent. Many are strong, but few can balance logic and compassion. You are rare." Elias swallowed hard. Rare. He had survived isolation, solved impossible problems, and now he had guided a civilization through its darkest hour. But he knew this was only the beginning. The Queen's tests were not just about skill, they were about human qualities that could not be measured in numbers or equations. Courage, ingenuity, morality, these were the true markers of potential. Suddenly, the glowing chamber shifted again. Elias found himself standing on a new platform, overlooking a vast arena of alien machinery. Here, the test was different. A fleet of mechanical drones swirled in the air, performing tasks that required coordination, strength, and precision. The Queen communicated her instructions directly to his mind. Some problems cannot be solved alone. You must lead, communicate, and inspire. Show what it means to be human in the face of complexity. Elias realized that this challenge was not just about technical skill, it was about leadership. The drones moved unpredictably, sometimes colliding or spinning out of control. He could not command them with brute force. Instead, he began to anticipate their movements using logic, observation, and guidance. He issued clear, simple instructions, adjusting his strategies as he observed the drones' responses. Hours passed, or maybe it was longer. Elias lost track of time, but slowly, the drones aligned, moving in harmony under his guidance. Patterns emerged. Orders were restored, and a sense of unity spread through the arena. Elias felt the thrill of achievement, not just because he had succeeded, but because he had learned something vital. Humans could lead, adapt, and inspire even in situations beyond comprehension. The Queen's presence filled his mind with approval. "You are learning faster than we expected. Humans are capable of extraordinary feats when guided by intelligence, creativity, and heart. You demonstrate the qualities we seek." Elias felt a mix of pride and humility. Pride, because he had proven himself in ways no human had before. Humility, because he realized how vast and complex the universe truly was, and how small humanity was in comparison. Yet, despite that smallness, he felt a spark of hope. Humans were capable of more than survival. They could innovate, lead, and inspire in ways even the most advanced species might underestimate. The Queen did not stop there. Another vision appeared before him, a world torn by conflict, where two alien factions stood on the brink of war. Elias could see the fear, the anger, and the desperation in their eyes. Here, brute force would fail. Diplomacy, creativity, and courage were required. Elias approached the situation cautiously. He studied the factions, their histories, their fears. Then he acted, not as a soldier, but as a human. He proposed a compromise that balanced justice with mercy, demonstrating empathy while protecting the innocent. He negotiated, explained, and adapted as tensions flared. Slowly, the conflict subsided, and the factions began to cooperate. Elias felt relief, exhaustion, and a quiet sense of wonder. The Queen's voice resonated in his mind. You understand what many failed to grasp. Humanity is not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most powerful. But humans endure, create, and adapt. Humans make choices that reflect both logic and heart. That is why you were chosen. Elias took a deep breath. He realized that these tests were not simply for him, they were a demonstration of what humans could achieve. Isolation, challenges, and survival had prepared him to show the universe that humanity was more than a fragile species. Humans could face impossible odds and still rise, guided by creativity, courage, and compassion. Finally, the chamber shifted again. Elias found himself back on a glowing platform, alone. The alien figures had withdrawn, leaving only the Queen, who floated above him with serene authority. You have done well, she said. Few species could balance skill, intelligence, and empathy as you have. Few humans could endure isolation, solve challenges, and act with courage in the face of uncertainty. You have proven what we hope, that humans are extraordinary. Elias felt a mixture of pride and humility. He had been tested in ways no human had ever been tested. He had faced challenges that required intellect, courage, empathy, and creativity. And he had succeeded, not because he was perfect, but because he had remained human, thoughtful, curious, and determined. The Queen extended her hand. Now, you must prepare for the next phase. You are not finished, Elias Farn. The universe is vast, and your journey has only begun. But know this, humans are capable of greatness beyond what even we imagined. You are the first of your kind to show it. Elias nodded, his heart racing. The tests had been terrifying, exhausting, and exhilarating. But he understood now what the Queen meant. Being human was more than endurance or intelligence. It was creativity, courage, and moral strength, the ability to rise to challenges that seemed impossible and to act with both thought and heart. As he gazed across the glowing landscape, Elias felt a spark of excitement. The universe was full of challenges, but he was ready. He was human, and humans had a power even the most advanced species might never fully understand. For the first time, Elias felt not only hope, but purpose. The test had proven his strength. The Queen had chosen him, and now he was ready to show the universe what humanity could truly achieve. Elias Farn had proven himself through observation, challenges, and tests that measured his intelligence, courage, and moral strength. Yet the alien Queen had made it clear the greatest trial was still ahead. He had survived isolation, solved impossible problems, and guided civilizations. Now, he faced a choice, one that could shape not only his destiny, but the fate of humanity. The chamber shifted once again. Elias found himself on a vast platform suspended above a glowing expanse of stars. The alien figures were gone, leaving only the Queen. Her presence was calm, yet it carried the weight of ancient knowledge. He sensed that the decision he would soon make was of great importance. You have done well, Elias Farn, the Queen said, her voice echoing in his mind. Few humans could balance intellect, courage, and empathy as you have. Yet your journey is not complete. The next challenge is not about endurance or skill, it is about judgment. Elias took a deep breath. Judgment. He had faced complex problems and guided civilizations. How could he be tested further? There are two paths before you, the Queen continued. You may remain here, among us, learning, guiding, and shaping the galaxy. You will be a champion of human potential, your presence influencing countless worlds. Or you may return to your own people, to Earth, carrying knowledge and understanding that could elevate humanity but also mark it as a force. The universe will watch closely. Elias felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Both paths carried immense responsibility. To stay meant leaving Earth behind, living among beings far older and wiser than any human. To return meant facing his own species, sharing knowledge that might inspire greatness or fear. He could not make this decision lightly. The Queen extended her hand, and a vision unfolded before him. He saw Earth not as it was, but as it could be. Humans using knowledge from the stars to solve their greatest problems: hunger, disease, conflict. Cities rising with clean energy, communication spanning the globe instantly. People working together as never before. The possibilities were breathtaking, but another vision followed. He saw humans misusing the knowledge, creating weapons, spreading fear, and turning on one another. He saw civilizations falling to chaos, not because of weakness, but because of poor choices. His heart ached at the thought. Every choice has consequences, the Queen said softly. Your decision will ripple through time and space. You must consider not only yourself, but all humanity. Elias stepped back, struggling to focus. He closed his eyes, drawing upon all he had learned during his isolation, his tests, and his trials. He remembered the loneliness, the dreams, the challenges that pushed him to the limits of endurance. He remembered the civilizations he had guided, the problems he had solved, and the empathy he had shown. And he remembered the human spirit, the stubborn determination, the curiosity, the willingness to rise against impossible odds. That was the part of humanity that mattered most. Opening his eyes, Elias looked to the stars stretched out below the platform. He imagined himself remaining among the aliens, learning their ways, helping guide their civilizations. It was tempting. The knowledge, the power, the opportunity to shape the galaxy. It was unlike anything humans could hope to achieve. Yet, something inside him pulled toward Earth. Humans were imperfect, often reckless, sometimes cruel, but they were also capable of great courage, ingenuity, and compassion. Elias felt that his place was among them, not above them, not as a figure of power in alien courts, but as a guide, a messenger, a catalyst for human potential. I choose to return, he said aloud, his voice steady despite the weight of the decision. I will go back to my people. I will share what I can. I will help them grow, not rule them. The Queen's presence pulsed with approval. You understand the true nature of your kind. Humans are small, fragile, and limited in many ways, but they possess the power to rise above limitations, to adapt, and to endure. Your choice honors that spirit. Before Elias could speak again, the chamber shifted. He was no longer suspended above the stars, but standing in a new space, a calm, serene landscape. Light flowed gently across the ground, and alien figures observed him silently, no longer testing, only waiting. The Queen's voice filled his mind once more. Your decision is wise, Elias Varn. Yet wisdom alone is not enough. You will face one final test, a test of courage and moral strength. You will be shown visions of possible futures. Some will tempt you with power, glory, or safety. Others will challenge your empathy, your creativity, and your resolve. You must choose correctly, or the knowledge you carry may be lost, or worse, misused. Elias felt a shiver run through him. Even after everything, the weight of responsibility pressed down. Yet he knew he could not falter. He had been chosen not just for endurance, intelligence, or skill, but because he could act as a true human, balancing logic, courage, and heart. The visions began. The first showed Earth consumed by war, humans turning against each other for resources and power. Cities burned, oceans rose, and the sky was darkened with smoke. In the vision, Elias could intervene, using alien knowledge to command armies, defeat enemies, and seize control. It would be easy he could prevent the chaos, but at the cost of freedom and trust. He shook his head. No, he whispered. Humans must make their own choices. Even mistakes had value. Growth came from learning, not domination. The second vision was of a world where humans had learned too little, remaining divided and weak. Disease, hunger, and conflict persisted. The temptation was to stay with the aliens, to bring back only partial knowledge. Only what was safe. He could protect humanity from mistakes, but he would limit their potential. Again, he refused. Humans were capable of greatness if guided correctly. He would not shield them from challenge. He would give them tools, knowledge, and hope, but leave them to rise on their own. Finally, a vision of unity appeared. Humans worked together, inspired by new ideas and understanding. They explored the stars responsibly, solved old problems, and shared knowledge freely. But the path was not easy. They faced setbacks, conflicts, and fear. Yet they endured, adapted, and learned. Elias reached out mentally, feeling the vision as if it were real. This is the path, he said softly. This is what humans can become, not perfect, but capable, resilient, and courageous. The Queen's voice filled his mind one last time. You have chosen wisely. You understand the value of choice, responsibility, and empathy. You are ready to return to your kind. Remember this, humans are not the strongest, nor the fastest, nor the most powerful, but their greatest strength lies in endurance, creativity, and heart. You carry that truth. The chamber shifted once more. Stars and light swirled around Elias, pulling him gently toward Earth. He felt a mix of excitement, fear, and hope. He was returning to the world he had left behind, carrying knowledge beyond comprehension, yet leaving humanity free to grow on its own. As the journey began, he reflected on everything he had learned. Isolation had taught him patience. The tests had shown him ingenuity and moral strength. The visions had revealed the weight of choice. And above all, he had discovered that humanity, despite its flaws, was capable of greatness that even ancient beings could respect. Elias felt a profound sense of purpose. He was more than a human returning from isolation. He was a messenger, a guide, and a living example of what humans could achieve. The universe was vast, full of challenges and wonders, and yet he carried the spark of humanity with him, ready to inspire, teach, and rise to the impossible. Somewhere across the stars, the alien queen observed him silently, not as a ruler judging a subject, but as a mentor witnessing the birth of human potential in a single chosen individual. Elias smiled faintly, feeling the warmth of determination spread through him. Earth awaited not just as a planet, but as a stage for humanity's journey into the stars. And he would face it as he had faced every challenge before, with courage, intellect, and the human heart leading the way. The path ahead was uncertain, full of obstacles, and yet brimming with possibility. Elias Varn stepped forward, ready to meet it, carrying the weight of choice, the spark of human potential, and the promise of a future yet unwritten. The stars stretched endlessly around him. But Elias knew something vital. Humans were capable of reaching them not through force, but through courage, ingenuity, and the strength of the heart. And he would ensure that humanity remembered this truth, rising to meet the universe as it was always meant to, undaunted, resilient, and extraordinary. Elias Varn felt the stars swirl around him as the alien queen's chamber faded into the distance. The journey back to Earth was not merely physical, it was a journey of understanding, of carrying the weight of knowledge, and of holding the spark of human potential. Every pulse of light, every thread of energy that had guided him through the alien world, now seemed to flow through him, connecting him to the universe in a way he had never imagined. He thought of Earth, the blue planet spinning silently in space. He remembered its beauty, its chaos, and its people. Humans were small, fragile, and flawed, but they were capable of extraordinary things. Elias had seen it in his isolation, in the tests, and in the visions the Queen had shown him. Now, he was returning as a bridge between worlds, a living proof of humanity's potential. When he arrived, the familiar sights of Earth filled him with both comfort and wonder. The sky was blue, the clouds moved gently, and cities stretched below him like tiny, pulsing networks of life. Yet something had changed. He felt the vastness of the universe pressing gently against his mind, reminding him that Earth was only a part of a much larger story. Elias knew that he could not reveal everything he had learned. The knowledge of alien civilizations, advanced technologies, and interstellar wisdom was too vast, too dangerous to release all at once. Humans were brilliant, but they were also untested in the ways the universe demanded. He would have to guide, teach, and inspire carefully, using the lessons he had learned to awaken the best in them. In the months that followed, Elias worked tirelessly. He spoke to leaders, scientists, and thinkers, sharing insights in ways they could understand. He taught patience, observation, and problem-solving. He encouraged humans to look beyond conflict, to work together, and to explore not just the world, but the universe itself. Many were skeptical at first. How could one man, alone, have survived a year in isolation and returned with knowledge beyond comprehension? But Elias did not ask for belief, he asked for curiosity, for effort, and for courage. Slowly, people began to listen. Slowly, they began to think differently, to approach challenges with creativity and collaboration rather than fear and competition. The Queen's lessons echoed in his mind constantly. Humans were not the strongest. They were not the fastest. They were not the most powerful. But they could endure, adapt, and innovate in ways no other species could match. That truth guided every choice he made, every word he spoke, and every plan he formed. And then, one evening, as Elias looked up at the stars from a quiet hill outside a city, he felt the familiar pulse, the presence of the alien queen, reaching across the void. Not to command, not to test, but to observe and to acknowledge. "You have returned." Her voice filled his mind. "You carry the potential of your kind. You have acted wisely, showing patience, courage, and understanding. And yet, your journey is only beginning. The universe awaits, and humanity is ready to rise." Elias nodded silently, feeling a deep sense of responsibility. The Queen had chosen him not for glory, not for power, but to demonstrate what humans could achieve. And now, the choice to use that opportunity wisely rested entirely on his shoulders. In the following years, humanity began to change. Conflicts that had seemed permanent were resolved through negotiation and creativity. Scientists and engineers collaborated on ways to explore space responsibly. Children grew up learning to value curiosity, empathy, and courage alongside knowledge. Elias watched these changes, knowing that the seeds he had planted through example, guidance, and wisdom were beginning to grow. Yet Elias never forgot the alien world he had left behind. The lessons of Zion 7 stayed with him: patience, observation, and the understanding that intelligence alone was not enough. He shared these lessons subtly, guiding humans to see the connections between life, energy, and knowledge. One day, as he gazed at a young generation of scientists preparing for their first deep space mission, he felt the pulse again. This time, it was closer, warmer, and somehow more intimate. The Queen's presence filled his mind with quiet approval. "You have chosen wisely," she said. "You have honored your species. You have shown that humanity, though small, is capable of greatness. And you have proven that one individual, guided by courage and heart, can inspire an entire species." Elias smiled, feeling both pride and humility. He knew that humans were far from perfect. There would be setbacks, conflicts, and failures. Yet he also knew that they had a spark that could not be extinguished, a spark of creativity, endurance, and moral courage that could rise to meet any challenge. No matter how impossible, years passed, and humanity began to explore the stars more boldly. Spaceships carried humans beyond their solar system, guided by the principles Elias had shared: observation, creativity, courage, and empathy. Humanity faced new challenges on distant worlds, but each time they stumbled, they rose again. The lessons of endurance, moral strength, and ingenuity had taken root. Elias observed silently, always present, always guiding when needed, but never controlling. He understood the balance. Humans must grow on their own, yet they could be inspired by those who had seen what was possible. He had become a living symbol not of power, but of potential. One night, he stood on a quiet hill once more, looking up at the stars. The pulse of the alien queen reached him gently, and he felt a connection not just to the aliens, but to all of humanity. The universe was vast, full of challenges, wonders, and possibilities. But humanity had learned, in its own way, to rise to the impossible. Elias whispered to the stars, though no one could hear him. "We are ready." The stars seemed to shimmer in response, as if acknowledging a promise that stretched across space and time. Humanity, small and fragile though it might be, was no longer limited by fear or ignorance. It had learned to endure, to create, and to rise above impossible odds. And in that, Elias knew the truth the Queen had revealed. Humans were extraordinary, not because they were invincible, but because they dared to be brave, to be clever, and to act with heart. As the years turned into decades, Elias continued his work quietly. He became a mentor, a guide, and a symbol of what humans could achieve. Young scientists, explorers, and thinkers sought his counsel. Inspired by the stories of endurance and the lessons from Zion 7, the knowledge he had gained, carefully shared, became the foundation for humanity's rise among the stars. And still, the pulse of the Queen's presence was there, distant but comforting, reminding him that humanity was not alone in the universe, and that the future was full of possibilities beyond imagination. Elias understood now that being chosen was not about personal glory or power. It was about responsibility, about guiding, inspiring, and nurturing the potential within humanity. One man could not change everything, but he could spark a movement, plant ideas, and inspire courage. That was enough. That was everything. On the night of his final reflection, Elias looked at the sky, filled with stars that stretched across the cosmos. He felt a quiet joy, knowing that humans were rising, learning, and exploring. He had seen what the universe demanded, he had endured, and he had returned with the spark of understanding. And in that moment, he realized something profound. Humans were chosen not by the alien queen, but by themselves. Their courage, ingenuity, and heart had made them capable of greatness. He had only been the first to see it, and the first to show it. The stars above seemed to shine brighter, as if affirming the promise. Humanity was no longer a small, fragile species on a single planet. It was a force capable of endurance, creativity, and moral courage. It was ready to rise. Elias Varn smiled faintly, feeling both peace and determination. He had been chosen, yes, but the real choice now belonged to humanity. And he had faith that, when the time came, humans would rise to meet the universe, as they were always meant to. And so, under the endless sky, among the twinkling stars and the quiet hum of earth below, Elias stood a witness, a guide, and a reminder of what humans could achieve. He had endured isolation, faced impossible challenges, and returned to inspire. He had been chosen by the alien queen, but in truth, he had always been human, and that was enough to change the stars.